The heavy door creaked open, revealing the dimly lit foyer of Ellenor's house. Julia hesitated a moment before stepping inside, her heart feeling as heavy as the air that greeted her. Lilly followed closely behind, her small hand gripping her mother's tightly. "Mommy, it smells." "Old in here," Lilly whispered, nose crinkling in distaste. "Your grandmother always liked to keep things neat and clean, but the house has been closed up for some time now," Julia explained, trying to maintain a neutral tone. She knew Ellenor's meticulous nature had always been more about control than cleanliness. The lingering scent of old furniture and stale air only served to reinforce that notion. As they ventured further into the house, the absence of personal touches became more apparent. The walls were devoid of family photographs or any semblance of warmth, save for the occasional landscape painting. Each room seemed to reflect Ellenor's strict nature, with every piece of furniture carefully arranged, each cushion perfectly plumped. "Everything is so perfect," Lilly murmured, pausing in front of a small glass cabinet filled with delicate porcelain figurines. Her bright green eyes widened as she peered at them, her curiosity piqued despite the somber atmosphere. "Your grandmother was very particular about how she kept her home," Julia replied softly, her gaze falling on the pristine white doilies adorning the armrests of the nearby sofa. She couldn't help but feel the tight knot of resentment in her chest swell at the sight. Ellenor's need for control had always extended to her relationship with Julia, making her childhood feel suffocating and constrained. "Did she ever let you touch any of these?" Lilly asked innocently, her small finger hovering just above one of the delicate figurines. "No, she didn't," Julia admitted with a sad smile, watching her daughter's fascination with the foreign world her grandmother had created. She was very protective of them, just like everything else in this house. "Did she love you?" Mommy Lily's question caught Julia off guard, and she could see the genuine concern in her daughter's eyes. For a moment, all the bitterness and anger towards Ellenor threatened to spill over, but Julia swallowed them down and forced a smile. "Of course she did, sweetheart," she replied, her voice barely more than a whisper. She just had her own way of showing it. Julia paused at the foot of the stairs, her heart pounding in rhythm with the grandfather clock that had been a constant in Ellenor's home. She stared up at the closed door of her mother's bedroom, her hands clammy with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. The weight of this moment bore down on her like the heavy air that pervaded the old house. Mommy Lily's voice was small, barely more than a whisper, but it cut through Julia's thoughts like a knife. "Are we going to see Grandma's room?" "Why, yes," she stammered, swallowing hard. "Come on, let's go upstairs." She took Lily's hand, feeling the warmth and reassurance of her daughter's presence, and together they ascended the creaking steps. As they reached the landing, Julia hesitated, gathering her resolve before finally reaching for the doorknob. It was cold to the touch, as if warning her of the chill that lay behind the door. With one last deep breath, she turned the knob and pushed the door open. The room seemed frozen in time, the late afternoon sunlight filtering through the lace curtains, casting a warm glow over the neatly made bed and the dresser adorned with perfume bottles. Yet despite the apparent warmth, an icy stillness hung in the air, as if the room were holding its breath. "Look," Mommy Lily said, pointing to a small wooden desk tucked away in the corner of the room, away from the light. "What's that?" Julia's eyes were drawn to the desk, its surface polished and devoid of any personal effects. It stood stoically against the wall, a symbol of her mother's unyielding nature. She could almost hear Ellenor's voice admonishing her for her careless mistakes, her disheveled appearance, and her inability to meet her mother's exacting standards. "Your grandmother used to write letters there," Julia explained, her voice barely audible as she fought against the lump forming in her throat. She would sit for hours, pouring her thoughts onto paper. "Did she write letters to you?" Mommy Lily asked, her green eyes wide with curiosity and innocence. "Sometimes," Julia replied, her mind drifting back to the days when she would receive Ellenor's meticulously written missives, each word carefully chosen to convey her disapproval or disappointment. She had always longed for a connection with her mother, but was met, more often than not, with a cold and distant woman whose love seemed forever out of reach. "Can we see what's inside the desk?" Lily's enthusiasm brought Julia back to the present, and she hesitated for a moment before nodding her agreement. "All right, sweetheart. Let's take a look together." They approached the desk, their hands trembling with anticipation and uncertainty as they opened its drawers, searching for any semblance of the woman who had once been a towering presence in Julia's life. The room seemed to hold its breath as Julia's fingers hovered over the drawer handle, an invisible thread tugging at her heartstrings. With a deep exhale, she pulled open the drawer, revealing its hidden contents. Lily peered over her mother's shoulder, her young gaze drawn to the bundle of letters nestled among the other trinkets and memorabilia. "Mommy, what are those?" Lily's voice was barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly would shatter the fragile stillness of the room. "Letters," Julia murmured, her green eyes locked on the faded ribbon that bound them together. She could feel her pulse quickening in her throat as she reached out, her hand hesitating for just a moment before gently lifting the bundle from the drawer. "Who wrote them?" Lily asked, her curiosity piqued by the sight of her mother's trembling hands. "Your grandmother," Julia replied, her voice thick with emotion. The weight of the letters felt heavier than their physical mass, as if each sheet of paper carried the burden of Ellenor's unspoken words. "Can we read them?" Mommy Lily's eyes searched Julia's face, seeking permission to untangle the web of secrets that lay before them. "All right." Julia took a steadying breath, feeling the weight of her daughter's trust anchoring her in the present moment. Carefully, she untied the ribbon, her fingers shaking as she unfolded the first letter. "Dear Julia," she began, her voice wavering as the carefully penned words danced before her eyes. A mixture of love and regret swirled within her chest as she continued to read, each sentence shedding light on the pain her mother had silently carried for years. "Mommy, are you okay?" Lily's concerned expression mirrored the worry etched on Julia's face as she struggled to digest the emotions laid bare in Ellenor's words. "Sweetheart," Julia paused, searching for the right words to convey the complexity of her feelings. "Sometimes people we love can hurt us in ways we don't understand, but that doesn't mean they don't care about us." "Is that what Grandma's letters are about?" Lily asked, her small hand reaching up to wipe away a tear that had escaped the corner of Julia's eye. "Something like that," Julia whispered, clutching the letters to her chest as if they were the key to unlocking the mysteries of her mother's heart. And perhaps they were. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the dusty window, casting a somber glow on Julia's face as she continued to read through the letters. Lily sat silently beside her, sensing the gravity of the moment. As Ellenor's words swam before Julia's eyes, she felt as if she were plunging into the depths of her mother's soul, a place where pain and love coexisted in a turbulent dance. "Mommy," Lily asked tentatively, her small voice barely breaking through the heavy atmosphere. Julia blinked, trying to shake herself free from the intoxicating hold the letters had over her. "Yes, sweetie." "Is Grandma sick?" The question hung in the air, a fragile thread connecting the past to the present. Mommy didn't know, but yes, Julia's voice trembled, her heart aching with regret for not being there for Ellenor during her illness. "She was, Lily." "Did she tell you about it?" In the letters, Lily's eyes searched Julia's face for answers, her childlike curiosity shining through the haze of sorrow. "Your grandma wanted to protect me," Julia admitted quietly, her fingers tracing the inked words that revealed Ellenor's hidden struggles. "She thought keeping her illness a secret would make things easier for me." "But why? You could have helped her, right?" Lily's innocent question only served to deepen the pain Julia felt, the weight of missed opportunities settling heavily upon her shoulders. "Maybe I could have," Julia whispered, a lone tear escaping down her cheek. "But sometimes people make choices that they think are best for others, even if it hurts them in the process." "Like how you always tell me not to worry when you're sad," Lily murmured, a glimmer of understanding dawning in her young eyes. Exactly like that, Julia nodded, drawing her daughter close for a tender embrace. Together they continued to read the letters, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that Ellenor had suffered in silence for so long. The words on the pages seemed to be both a balm and a dagger, soothing Julia's heartache while also revealing the depth of her mother's love, a love that had been hidden beneath layers of fear and control. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Julia felt an unshakable resolve take root within her. She would carry the lessons of these letters forward, honoring her mother's memory by providing Lilly with the love and understanding she herself had always craved. Mommy, Lilly whispered into the fading light. I know Grandma isn't here anymore, but I think she really did love you. Touched by her daughter's insight, Julia pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. I think so too, sweetie. I think so too. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the room as Julia continued to read through the letters, her fingers trembling slightly with each turn of the page. Lilly sat quietly beside her, sensing the gravity of the moment and offering her silent support. Listen to this, Lilly, Julia whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She wrote, Despite my fears and failings, I have always loved you deeply, my dear daughter. I tried to protect you from the harshness of life, but in doing so, I may have only pushed you away. As she read those words aloud, Julia's eyes welled up with tears. The image of Ellenor that had been etched into her mind for years, a stern, unyielding woman, seemed to crumble before her, replaced by the portrait of a mother who had loved her fiercely, even if it didn't always show. Mommy, did Grandma really feel like that? Lilly asked, her own eyes wide and shimmering with unshed tears. Julia nodded, wiping at her cheeks with the back of her hand. It seems so, sweetie. This side of her was hidden from me, but these letters, they're showing me a different kind of loved one that was always there, just buried beneath her fears. Like how you always tell me not to worry when you're sad, Lilly murmured, a glimmer of understanding dawning in her young eyes. Exactly like that, Julia agreed, pulling her daughter close. As she continued to read, the words on the pages painted a picture of a woman who had struggled with her own fears and traumas, and who had acted out of love, albeit in a misguided way. Grandma was scared, wasn't she? Mommy, Lilly ventured cautiously, her small hand resting on Julia's arm. Yes, darling, Julia replied softly, struggling to keep her voice steady. She was afraid of losing me, so she tried to control everything around her, including me. But underneath it all, I think she just wanted to keep me safe. Together they read through the remaining letters, their hearts heavy with the newfound understanding of Ellenor's love and the depth of her pain. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the room, Julia clung to the final letter, feeling as if she were holding onto a piece of her mother's soul. Mommy, Lilly whispered into the fading light, I know Grandma isn't here anymore, but I think she really did love you. Touched by her daughter's insight, Julia pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. I think so too, sweetie. I think so too. A solitary tear slid down Julia's cheek, landing on the parchment with a soft patter. As she continued to read through the letters, her heart ached with regret for not being there for Ellenor during her illness, for not understanding the pain her mother had been silently enduring. Mommy, Lilly asked tentatively, picking up on her mother's emotions, Are you okay? Julia nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. I'm just realizing how much I didn't know about Grandma, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Like what? Lilly inquired, her green eyes filled with curiosity and concern. Like how she was sick, and that she never told me, Julia replied, her fingers tracing the inked words on the page. She wanted to protect me, but I didn't understand that. Instead, I felt like she was trying to control me. Lilly furrowed her brow, struggling to comprehend the complexity of her mother's relationship with Ellenor. But you're here now, reading her letters. Maybe that's what she wanted all along. Maybe, Julia agreed, feeling a mixture of sadness, gratitude, and newfound understanding as she delved further into her mother's private thoughts. The room seemed to absorb the heaviness of the emotions, casting a somber air over the space. "Did you ever try to talk to her about it?" Lily asked, leaning against her mother for comfort. "I tried," Julia confessed, her voice trembling, "but we always ended up arguing instead. It's hard to accept that she's gone without having the chance to make things right." "Sometimes people don't know how to say what they really feel," Lily offered, her wisdom belying her youthful age. Maybe these letters were her way of trying. "You're right, sweetie," Julia said, squeezing her daughter's hand. "I just wish I had known sooner." As they read on, the words danced and merged, weaving a tapestry of love, fear, and regret that seemed to echo through the empty house. The sun slipped below the horizon, leaving them in a world of shadows and half-truths, all bound together by the fading ink on the pages of Ellenor's heart. "Mommy," Lily murmured after a while, her voice heavy with sleep, "I think Grandma would want you to forgive her. And yourself." Julia let out a soft sigh, knowing her daughter was right. It was time to let go of the pain and embrace the love that had been there all along, hidden beneath the layers of misunderstanding and fear. With each word she read, Julia felt herself drawing closer to her mother, a bond forged in the depths of their shared sorrow and unspoken affection. The last letter slipped from Julia's fingers, landing softly on the stack beside her. Her heart swelled with a torrent of emotions, grief, and love intertwined like the faded ribbon that had bound the letters together. She clutched the bundle to her chest, feeling the pain of her mother's absence as acutely as the warmth of her love. Mommy Lily's voice was hesitant, as if she too sensed the gravity of the moment. Julia looked down at her daughter, her eyes brimming with tears that threatened to spill over. "Sweetheart," Julia whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "these letters have shown me a side of Grandma I never knew. I've realized how much she loved us, and how hard it must have been for her to keep this secret." Lily nodded solemnly, her green eyes filled with understanding. "It's okay to be sad, Mommy, but we can remember her and try to understand why she did what she did." Julia drew in a shaky breath, her resolve strengthened by her daughter's words. "You're right, Lily, and I want to honor Grandma's love by being the best mother I can be to you." With that promise hanging in the air between them, Julia rose from the floor, the weight of the letters not only a physical burden, but also a reminder of the emotional complexities that had defined her relationship with Ellenor. She took one final look around her mother's room, the memories of a lifetime etched into every corner and crevice. "Come on, Lily," she said, her voice steady despite the heaviness in her heart. "Let's go home." As they stepped out of the room and into the dimly lit hallway, Julia felt the shadow of her mother's presence lingering behind them. There would always be questions left unanswered, lingering doubts, and a sense of betrayal that Ellenor had chosen to keep her illness hidden. But among the tangled threads of pain and heartache, there was also a love that had always been there, even if it had been concealed behind a facade of control and rigidity. Mommy Lily said as they made their way through the quiet house, "Do you think Grandma is watching over us now?" Julia hesitated, considering her answer carefully. "I like to think that she is, sweetheart, that she's finally found peace and can see how much we loved her, even when we didn't always understand each other." "Good," Lily murmured, slipping her small hand into Julia's as they left the house that had once been Ellenor's fortress, "because I want her to know we'll be okay, that we'll love and remember her, always." And with those words, Julia felt the first glimmer of hope shining through the shadows of grief. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across Ellenor's front lawn as Julia and Lily prepared to leave. The once familiar house now seemed like a stranger, its secrets only partially uncovered. "Mom," Lily asked, her eyes searching Julia's face for reassurance, "are we going to be okay?" Julia looked down at her daughter, the letters still clutched tightly in her hands. She forced a smile despite the turmoil inside her. "Yes, Lily, we'll be okay. We have each other, and that's what matters most." Hand in hand, they stepped out of the house, the door creaking shut behind them. Julia paused on the porch, looking back one last time at the home that had held so many memories, some cherished, some painful. The weight of those memories pressed down upon her, but she knew it was time to move on. Mommy Lily's voice broke through Julia's thoughts, her daughter's eyes filled with concern. "You're not mad at Grandma anymore, are you?" Julia sighed, torn between the hurt and anger still simmering beneath the surface and the love she couldn't deny for her mother. "No, sweetheart, I'm not mad. I'm just sad. Your grandma loved us, but she didn't know how to show it. Now that I know more about her, I can try to forgive her and understand why she did what she did." "Forgiveness is important, right?" Lily asked, her green eyes wide and serious. "Yes," Julia whispered, her heart swelling with pride for her young daughter's wisdom. "Forgiveness is important. And so is love. We have to remember that, no matter what." As they walked away from Ellenor's house, their shadows stretching out before them, Julia felt the first stirrings of healing within her. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for them to step into the future with open hearts, a future where they would carry the weight of their past, but also find the strength to forgive and love one another. Mom Lily said, her voice full of hope. "I think we're going to be all right." Julia squeezed her daughter's hand, nodding in agreement. "Yes, Lily, we're going to be all right," and as they walked toward the car, Julia knew that this was only the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, one filled with hope, love,